can't believe I'm here, playing for my life tonight.
I can't believe I'm here, I made it, I'm playing for my life tonight. I'm a shining light. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here, playing for our life tonight. Yeah, I'm playing for our life tonight.
Welcome to Kingdom Driven Sports, friends. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come watch my videos and support the channel. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited for today's video. As many of you know, the 2025 NFL Draft just took place, and so I wanted to give you my assessment of the NFL Draft, but I wanted to do it a little bit differently, and I am going to be making videos for each division in football. We're going to start with the AFC North and then move to the NFC counterpart. So the NFC North will be the next video. But I wanted to do it division by division so that we can give a brief overview of each team in that division, their picks. We're going to be talking about the best pick that each team made, the biggest reach or most questionable pick that each team made, and the diamond in the rough pick that each team made. And then at the end, I'm going to give you my assessment on who not necessarily had the best draft, but maybe improved the most in their position to try to either win the division or maintain their dominance in the division. But I thought that would be an interesting take. And so let's go ahead and get started again. We are starting with the AFC North. So I appreciate you joining me now that the dust has settled from the 2025 NFL Draft and these teams are integrating their new talent, their new rookie class that they've just acquired. We want to really take a look at the AFC North, the teams being the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the moves they made in the draft to help improve their team. We want to start with the Baltimore Ravens because I think they had a phenomenal draft. They entered this draft with some glaring holes, but they also have a lot of really good pieces in place. They wanted to address these holes that they had to try to remain one of the AFC elite teams that are year in and year out competing to try to make it to the Super Bowl. Now, they had 11 picks this year, which is the most of any team, and they had ample ammunition to add talent and depth to their team and address these needs. Some of the needs that they had were the interior offensive line, cornerback, edge rusher, defensive line, linebacker, safety, and even kicker, with these rumors and allegations that have come up regarding Justin Tucker. So let's take a look at their picks. They, in round one, selected the safety out of Georgia, Malachi Starks. In round two, the defensive end, Mike Green out of Marshall. Round three, offensive tackle, Emory Jones Jr. out of LSU. In round four, they selected Teddy Buchanan out of California. In round five, they selected another tackle, Carson Vinson from Alabama A&M. In round six, they had several picks. They had 5 picks in round 6, so that's crazy. But they selected cornerback Bilhal Cohn from Western Michigan, kicker Tyler Loop from Arizona, wide receiver LeJonte Wester from Colorado, defensive tackle Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, and cornerback Robert Longerbeam from Rutgers. And then in the 7th round, they had 1 pick. They chose an offensive guard, Garrett Dellinger from LSU. So they had a pretty busy few days with all those picks, 11 picks, but they made the most of them. Their best pick for sure for me is Malachi Starks. Landing him late in the 1st round, it just seems like such a great value pick. And it's something that it seems the Ravens do so very well every draft, is find incredible value in their picks. And Malachi Starks was exactly that. He was considered one of the top safety prospects. He was projected by many to go higher than where he went on pick number 27 in the first round. So to be able to get him that late in round one, it was just, I think, a steal for the Ravens. He's a great playmaker, has great instincts, versatile, has amazing ball skills. In his career in Georgia, he had 6 interceptions. He had 77 tackles in 2024, 4 tackles for a loss, along with an interception. So he has speed and physicality to play deep, to cover the slot, support in the run game. And so pairing him with their already great Kyle Hamilton gives them arguably the most talented young safety duo in the NFL. So to be able to get Malachi Starks at pick 27 in round one is typical Ravens value. They're doing their homework and being able to just pick a great player that will fit their system and be able to make an immediate impact. So I thought that was their best pick. Most questionable pick was probably, and it's going to sound weird in a sense because of how productive he was, the upside that he has, was probably their second round pick, the defensive end Mike Green from Marshall. It's one of those high risk, high reward. And I say that because Mike Green actually possesses what many analysts considered first round level talent as an edge rusher. He has explosiveness and has a very well-rounded game. But he did have some off-the-field concerns. He transferred from Virginia to Marshall after he faced some sexual assault allegations in college. And that was after some similar accusations came in high school as well. Now, he was never charged, so I don't want to sound like I'm accusing him and that these allegations were true. I'm just saying that there were allegations, both in high school and in Virginia. He maintains his innocence, and you're innocent until proven guilty, and there was never a charge. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, he was guilty. We don't know. We just know that there were those allegations. And so those can be some red flags, and those are red flags that teams take seriously. So I think it was a bit of a risk, especially with the things that are now going on with Justin Tucker on their team. We've seen the whole situation with Deshaun Watson. But I believe they've done their due diligence. They've done their homework. And they believe they're getting a great value in Mike Green. And if he is able to stay away from situations that might bring forth such allegations, I think he could be considered if not the steal of the draft. So he's got incredible talent, and he can definitely make a significant impact immediately. Just making sure he, again, doesn't put himself in a situation where allegations can be made or where poor decisions can be made. So I think that if he's able to focus on his career and just make the right choices, I think he'll be a steal for the Ravens. Another potential diamond in the rough pick is Teddy Buchanan out of the University of California. He was selected in the 4th round. He was a transfer, and he made a significant impact with his one season with the Golden Bears. He led their defense with 114 tackles and 12 tackles for a loss, along with 5 sacks. Well, that's really good. He has impressive coverage skills for a linebacker, which is something that's valued by all NFL teams. Some NFL analysts thought that he was a potential hidden gem. So for the Ravens to pick him up in the 4th round, I think that was a potential diamond in the rough type pick. And to pair him alongside Roquan Smith, that'll make their defense even more dangerous. Another name to watch that came from the later rounds was the 6th round defensive tackle, Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech. He was also highly productive. He had 31 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks in 2024. And he led ACC defensive tackles with 35 pressures. He has that high motor that doesn't quit, and really great pass rush ability, which is something you need in this league. As you saw in the Super Bowl, the Philadelphia Eagles, great rush, and Patrick Mahomes was uncomfortable the entire game. And so he's actually another player that could make an impact almost immediately if they use him correctly. So the Ravens, they had a Ravens draft, a strong draft. A lot of analysts gave them high marks, A, B+. They addressed the key needs with people like Malachi Starks and Teddy Buchanan. They added depth along the offensive line. And they may have a superstar defensive player in Mike Green. I'm tempted to say that they had the best draft of all the teams in the AFC North. But again, at the end, I'll tell you who I think improved the most. It'll also be interesting to see what happens in the Justin Tucker situation, given that he's been their kicker for such a long time. But now all these allegations have come out. So it looks like they possibly could be moving on from Justin Tucker since they selected Tyler Loop in the 6th round. Now, moving on to the next team, we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. They had more of an approach of betting on traits and patching holes. They needed to really bolster a defense that struggled in 2024 and just did not play well as their need to fortify that offensive line for Joe Burrow. Because of the retirement of Sam Hubbard and the whole contract situation with Trey Hendrickson, the defensive line was something they needed to address, along with the interior offensive line, cornerback, and linebacker. Now, unlike the Ravens, who had 11 picks, the Bengals only had 6. So they used those 6 picks to really focus heavily on the trenches. In round 1, they selected Shamar Stewart, defensive end from Texas A&M. Round 2, they selected linebacker Demetrius Knight Jr. from South Carolina. In round 3, offensive guard Dylan Fairchild from Georgia. Round 4, linebacker Barrett Carter from Clemson. And then round 5, offensive tackle Jalen Rivers from Miami. And then they finished it off in round 6 with running back Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. Now, my opinion on their best pick was Shamar Stewart. Many people will say that his statistics don't really back that up, but you have to look at his athletic ability, his physically imposing traits. He possesses elite physical traits, speed and athleticism. He's 6'5", 267 pounds, and he just flies around the field. Again, his college production, it wasn't what you would think it would be, just 1.5 sacks in 2024 and 4.5 sacks total in 3 seasons. He did lead Texas A&M with pressures with 39 last year. So he does have the ability to disrupt and make quarterbacks uncomfortable. So I think the Bengals saw the potential there to be able to put him in their system and really unlock his potential as an incredible defender. So I think that was a great pick for the Bengals. Regarding most questionable pick, I think it was the strategy to double up on linebacker. They did so pretty early. On day 2, they actually drew some criticism from several analysts because they selected Demetrius Knight Jr. in the 2nd round, the 49th pick. And then they came back and they took another linebacker, Barrett Carter, in the 4th round on day 3. Now, both players address the need, particularly because Jermaine Pratt is potentially leaving. So doubling up on linebacker seems like their way of trying to address that potential situation, but also raise questions about value maximization. Some people thought that Demetrius Knight was a reach at 49. But again, I think each team evaluates talent of these players and how they fit into their system specifically. And then Barrett Carter, he's a solid player, did well, and is another solid option for them at linebacker. But the Problem is, because they only had 6 picks, a lot of people thought the strategy of double dipping on linebacker wasn't the best way to use their limited picks. Their 3rd round pick, Dylan Fairchild, who was the offensive guard out of Georgia. Some people also thought that he was selected a little bit higher than a lot of analysts had him on their boards. But again, these analysts, even myself, and not that I'm an analyst, but we talk about these different players in the different positions, but the people that make the picks, they're there every day. And so potentially they just try to find the best person that will fit their system and make the pick that way. So we'll have to see how it pans out. Again, it's all very subjective at this point because these players have not played a single game. Their diamond in the rough, I think, was the running back Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. He was a highly productive college running back and a workhorse running back. He broke the school's career rushing record by posting back-to-back 1,500-yard seasons in 23 and 24. And last year, he rushed for 1,505 yards. He's compact, powerful, and has really good vision. Now, their running back room is a little bit crowded with Chase Brown and Zach Moss. They brought back Samaje Perine, but he's more of a third down back. But I think he'll definitely be competing for a role in their offense, and I think he was a great pick by the Bengals. Probably my favorite pick just because I think Joe Burrow is going to really like using him, even though I think Shamar Stewart is the best pick. So overall, the Bengals, their draft received lukewarm reception. There are people that gave them like D pluses, and then others that gave them Bs. Now, I think they addressed some of their needs. I do agree that they maybe could have, instead of double dipping on linebacker, potentially addressed another need that they had, but I'm not in the Bengals office every day analyzing or seeing what the biggest needs are. So I trust that they know what they're doing and that they evaluated the players that they chose and really liked what they came away with. So next, we'll talk about the Cleveland Browns, who had one of the more interesting drafts this year. They had some bold moves, and then they were making some moves for future flexibility. They had a 3-14 season last year, dismal. They are facing uncertainty around Deshaun Watson and his status, his recovery from a torn Achilles. They held the number 2 pick overall, and they traded that away to move down 3 spots and allow the Jaguars to move up. I think they're ready to say that they're done with the Deshaun Watson experiment, and I think they're willing to say that definitely didn't go according to plan. They gave him one of the worst contracts ever, and so it's really handcuffed them. I think they're just trying to make it through that until they can get out of that contract and hopefully try to make a deep playoff run through the players they drafted and others. But that Deshaun Watson situation was just, that contract, it was just not good. One of the worst, considered one of the worst contracts in sports history. I think his time in Cleveland is done. Let's take a look. Again, they had the number 2 pick, but traded with Jacksonville, so they went down to number 5. And with that 5th pick, they selected Mason Graham out of Michigan. Great pick. But round 2, they got Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA. And then round 2 again, because they got that from Jacksonville, they got running back Quinshawn Judkins from Ohio State, which was interesting. I thought Travion Henderson would have gone before Quinshawn, but it looked like Cleveland preferred Quinshawn Judkins and selected him. Tight end Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green in round 3, along with Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon, quarterback, in round 3 as well. In round 4, they got Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, and in round 5, they got Shadur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. So even after they traded down, and we saw that Jacksonville just could not pass up the opportunity to draft Travis Hunter, who's a bit of a unicorn, Cleveland took a little bit of heat from that decision because you have a player who many called a unicorn because there have been few that have been able to play both offense and defense. And here we have a guy who excelled at both. And Jacksonville couldn't pass up the opportunity to add him to their team. Cleveland couldn't pass up the opportunity to add more draft capital, including a first-round pick next year. So I think they're really trying to prepare for the future and just, get through this Deshaun Watson contract that has really handcuffed them in regards to what they're able to do. But they still got a great player in Mason Graham. He was a dominant force for the Michigan Wolverines. He had 45 tackles, 7 of them for a loss, and 3.5 sacks, and earned himself All-American honors. He's powerful. He has very good instincts and is able to stuff the run, and has some pass rush upside. He's known for his leverage and just having an ever-going motor, a motor that doesn't stop. So to be able to get him at number 5, trade down, get next year's draft, get an additional first-round pick, I think that was brilliantly done by the Cleveland Browns. And now you have another defensive monster to pair up with arguably the best defensive end in Myles Garrett. So I think this was the right move for the Cleveland Browns. Now, the most questionable pick for them, I think it was the quarterback running back double dip. They received some scrutiny and criticism because they passed on Shedeur Sanders multiple times, ended up taking Dylan Gabriel late in the 3rd round. But then in the 5th round, they traded up to get Shedeur Sanders. And so it was confusing. Okay, wait, you got Dylan Gabriel, so I don't know. They're like, you know what? Let's just move up and get Sanders because our quarterback situation is so questionable and there are so many unknowns. We should give ourselves as many options as possible. I'm not sure if that was what their thinking was, but they drafted 2 quarterbacks. And then they also drafted 2 running backs, Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. And for a team that is needing to rebuild and has areas that they could have addressed, I think they could have avoided double dipping and tried to address some of these other areas. But going to the next point, diamond in the rough, they got Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, and some considered him the number 1 quarterback in the draft. I still give that to Cam Ward. But I thought Shedeur Sanders was 2nd, maybe 3rd behind Jackson Dart. And to get him in the 5th round, you to have potentially gotten your franchise quarterback. We'll see how it pans out. I know a lot of people said there was attitude problems or just concerns about not being accountable for mistakes. But he had a great year. And I cannot say yay or nay to the attitude issues. I wasn't present in any of the interviews. All I know is he's a really good quarterback. He threw for 4,134 yards, 37 touchdowns in 2024, and he earned Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. When he's given time to throw the ball, I think they say he was the most accurate. Under pressure, not so great if he's running around, running for his life. But they say if you can protect him, he'll pick defenses apart. You have a potential franchise quarterback and you're able to get him in the 5th round. I think that's a diamond in the rough pick. And I think he's going to have a good chance. You have Joe Flacco, who's not a spring chicken by any means. He's aging. You have Kenny Pickett, who was a 1st-round pick a few drafts ago and just never panned out. Dylan Gabriel, who you drafted, and who has some nice experience under his belt. And then you have Deshaun Watson, who's injured, and I think, again, his days in Cleveland are done. So Shadur Sanders could potentially be one of the biggest steals in recent draft history, depending on how it all pans out. But I think to get him in the 5th round was a steal. Another gem was Harold Fanning Jr. from Bowling Green. He had a historic 2024 season. Set the FBS single season records for tight end with 117 receptions for 1,555 yards. He's a dynamic receiving threat that could be a really nice weapon for the Browns offense. So despite the unusual double dip in quarterback and running back, I think they did well in the draft. They received good grades from many of the analysts. Again, the grades are very subjective because we had to see these people perform in action. But I think there's a lot of upside, especially since they have now options at quarterback. They have a great defensive interior lineman to pair with Myles Garrett. You have Carson Schwessinger out of UCLA with 136 tackles, 90 solo tackles, which is awesome in 2024. And so I think they addressed a lot of their needs, and while some of it is like question marks and how it's going to pan out, I think that they did the best they could with their draft picks and what they had. And I think that they've at least tried to set themselves up for success in the future. Lastly, we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Interesting draft for them. Trench warfare and the waiting games, really what their draft was about. They entered the draft needing to address several key areas. They finished last season 10-7 and lost in a wild card round to the Baltimore Ravens. They needed a defensive tackle, running back, since Najee Harris departed and went to the Los Angeles Chargers. They needed a quarterback, even though they seem confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with them. Wide receiver and cornerback. They initially only had 6 picks, having traded their 2nd rounder for DK Metcalf, but they ultimately did make 7 picks. So this is what their draft class looks like. They got defensive tackle out of Oregon, Derek Harmon, running back Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, defensive end Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State, defensive tackle Yahya Black out of Iowa, quarterback Will Howard out of Ohio State, linebacker Carson Bruner out of Washington, and cornerback Dante Kent out of Central Michigan. A best pick, which for me was the defensive tackle out of Oregon, Derek Harmon. Bittersweet story there. He achieved his dream of making it to the NFL, being drafted in the 1st round. But unfortunately and sadly, his mother was gravely ill, and I'm sure you heard his story that it was shortly after he was able to tell her that he had been drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers that his mother passed away. And so I'm sure it is a bittersweet moment. I'm sure he is proud and excited that he has achieved his dream of playing in the NFL. But to lose your mother, that's got to be tough. Our prayers, our thoughts are with him and his family as they navigate through this difficult and challenging time. But I think he will go on, especially with the motivation of his mother and how much you could tell he loved her from his interviews. I think that's going to fuel him to have a great career in the NFL. With this pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers addressed what Coach Mike Tomlin called an extreme urgency on the defensive line. They struggled against the run late last season, and that's really how the Ravens were able to just dominate them. So adding Harmon's size, he's a 6'5", 313-pound big dude. He can provide that disruptive ability to the run game, and I think he'll really help shore up that defensive line. 2024, he had 45 tackles, 10.5 of those for loss, and 5 sacks. He led all interior defensive lineman with 55 pressures. He fits that mold, that Steeler mold for a powerful interior lineman who can both play the run and also the pass and put pressure on the quarterback when needed. I think it was the person that the Steelers hoped would be there, because it was said that if he was there, they were not going to trade down. They definitely liked him and were able to get him. A lot of people consider him a value pick. Most questionable pick was probably quarterback Will Howard. I love Will Howard. Won a national championship, but it's more questionable because the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh is very questionable. I think they're putting their eggs all in one basket, thinking that Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to sign here. And that's a dangerous game to play. Aaron Rodgers is technically still a free agent, and Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson are under contract. Those are the two quarterbacks they have right now, and now they have Will Howard. They had opportunities to draft Shedeur Sanders, but they passed on him repeatedly. So we'll see. This is not to say that Howard cannot be a franchise quarterback. He had a great year. He had 4,010 yards passing and 35 touchdowns. I think a lot of people see him as a project that you had to develop him, that he's not going to be ready immediately. And so if Pittsburgh is not able to land Rodgers, I think they've put themselves in a conundrum where they're probably, I don't know, they're going to do multiple quarterbacks or try each and every one. But all I know is that they're definitely playing a risky game, hoping that Aaron Rodgers signs with them, because if he doesn't, then you're left between a rock and a hard place. So it's not so much that I don't think Will Howard can be a great quarterback. I just think that, again, he's a project that will need some work. If he's not going to be ready this year, then you're basically relying on Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson in a division that is as tough as the AFC North, that don't think will work out very well. Diamond in the rough, I had to give it to another Ohio State guy, Jack Sawyer. Great pick. He's another one that seems to be like that Steeler mold, and I think he can be a significant contributor fairly quickly. He had 9 sacks and 64 pressures in 2024, made big plays. He seemed to be like the player on the Buckeyes that made the big play when they needed it. Everything from, even though they lost the game against Michigan, he made that crucial interception that really kept the Buckeyes in the game and could have changed the outcome. And then, of course, that big play against Texas where he was able to pick up that fumble and run it back. And so to pair him with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, you have a potential star there. So I think Jack Sawyer was a great pick. I also think Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. I was somewhat hoping he'd land on my Chiefs, but he, I think, is going to be a great fit in Arthur Smith's offense. Iowa had a great year, 1,537 yards and 22 touchdowns. And I think he could replace Najee Harris almost immediately. So the Steelers had a relatively positive draft. Many people gave him an A or B. That, of course, being under the assumption that maybe they know something we don't and that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback there. I would probably agree more with the B because they had opportunities to draft Shedeur Sanders that at least would have been like, okay, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign with us, we have someone that is potentially ready immediately, especially since they went and acquired DK Metcalf and really try to beef up their offense. I think it was interesting that they waited so long to get a quarterback. But again, maybe they know something we don't, and they are convinced that Aaron Rodgers will be the starter there in 2025, which also is, for me, interesting because Aaron Rodgers is getting older. So you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and that sometimes doesn't work out so well. But we'll see what happens. So now for the big question, which AFC North team improved the most through the 2025 NFL Draft? This division is always fiercely competitive. It just seems like every team in this division hates every other team in that division. And I remember watching the rivalries between the Ravens and the Steelers back when the Ravens, Joe Flacco was their starting quarterback, and Big Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback for the Steelers, and they had just amazing defenses on both sides, and they would bloody each other. It was, you could tell they did not like each other. We always see that fierce competition between these teams in this division. Let's quickly recap. Baltimore Ravens, they executed a typical Ravens draft, high volume. They addressed needs that they had and landed potential stars. Even in their calculated risk pick, they landed a potential star. I would say that the Baltimore Ravens had the best draft of all the AFC North teams. But I don't know if they improved the most. Cleveland Browns, to be able to get Mason Graham at pick 5 and trade down and then get a first-round pick next year, that was awesome. That really will help them weather the storm through that Deshaun Watson contract that is just so terrible. They added some high upside offensive weapons in Fannin and Sanders and addressed some linebacker and running back needs. It probably has a high ceiling class despite their unconventional strategy. The Steelers, they fortified the trenches. Harmon, they found a great fit in their running back out of Iowa and Caleb Johnson. And Jack Sawyer, I think, is going to be that Steeler-type defender that they're going to love there. I'm going to wave their terrible towels for him. And so I think they addressed the physicality that they like. I think Caleb Johnson is a great physical running back. But it's very conditional, this year is anyway, on how this season will go, with the hopes that will they land Aaron Rodgers? That's, again, a lot of risk and just putting your faith that he is going to sign with you, especially since he has come out and said that he would like to sign with the Minnesota Vikings if possible. But we'll see. So, who improved the most? So while the Ravens and Steelers both executed really solid drafts and bolstered their rosters, I think the team that honestly improved the most was the Cleveland Browns. Because given their situation, I was not thinking that they were going to be relevant at all. To be able to move down, get Mason Graham, get a 2026 first-round pick, which is crucial for rebuilding a team, they still were able to make moves that help them improve. While I don't think they'll win the division, the picks that they made will make them competitive within the division. Whereas before the draft, I would have been like, no, let's see if they win any games. Very well done by the Browns. Shedeur Sanders could potentially be their franchise quarterback. They got Fannin, who was just excellent at his position in tight end. I just think they improved the most with their picks, and especially regarding being able to look forward to next year's draft and have multiple first-round picks where they can fortify what they're trying to build. So there you have it, a deep dive into the 2025 NFL Draft for the AFC North. The Ravens stay true to their board, to their brand. The Bengals are taking some swings, some risks, but again, I think they know their needs better than we do. The Steelers fortify their lines while playing the waiting game at quarterback, which is a risky game to play. The Browns, they made some bold moves that help them add talent now and will help them add talent in the future. We'll see what happens in the AFC North. We'll see if Shedeur Sanders ends up being the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this year at some point, and we'll see how he does. But one thing is for certain, the AFC North remains one of the key divisions to watch in football, and I think these rookie classes will be critical in shaping the battles that'll come in this upcoming season and beyond. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to be doing the same thing. The next video is going to be on the NFC North, so be looking for that. and we'll make our way around the compass. We'll go from the north to east, south, and then finish off with west. But I hope you know that God loves you and Jesus loves you. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And if you don't know Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior, take the time to talk to him today. He wants to hear from you. He loves you, and he longs to have a relationship with you. But until next time, friends, God bless you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.